Republican Seniors of Minnesota. We bring seniors 50 plus together.
Learn about and discuss issues that are important to Minnesotans. Hear from our elected officials and experts on public policy.
Meet political candidates, elect delegates to district and state conventions, and help elect Republicans to office at all levels.
We believe in and advocate for the principles of personal responsibility, economic prosperity, peace through strong national defense,
and limited, sensible government. Republican Seniors of Minnesota. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Carol Brumwell, Chair of the Republican Seniors of Minnesota and your MC for this meeting. A special welcome to those who are attending via our video live stream. This meeting is being video recorded by volunteers. The area closest to the beverage station, like the first two chairs closest to the beverage station, are off camera. The rest of you are on camera. Your reactions will be noted. Quick reminders of some courtesy reminders. Please turn off or silence your cell phone. Set it to vibrate. Take side conversations out of the room. Those east doors can close so you can have a side conversation if you need to. Otherwise, in-room whisper. This room has really odd acoustics. You would think somebody talking at the back of the room wouldn't be heard, but they are. Somebody talking at the front of the room absolutely needs to use a microphone. So everybody, as you make comments today, wait for a microphone to be brought to you. Sound check. Sarah, are you able to hear? Greg, are you able to hear? Okay. Anybody during the meeting, if you're not able to hear, please raise a hand. Our former chair, Mike Lehman, is here running our soundboard for us. He'll make sure that we have the sound for you. Please join me now in an opening prayer. Gracious God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather for a meeting. Please bless our speakers this day. Help them to communicate clearly the knowledge they have to share. We pray for those in government office, especially our Minnesota legislators now in session. Grace them with your guidance and give them courage to do what is right. We pray for our candidates who are seeking government office. Keep them and their volunteers safe as they meet with and educate voters. Open the hearts and minds of voters to consider who best reflects their values. We thank you for each and every one who is here today. Grant each of us the strength and determination to take action and make a difference, using fully the skills and the lifetime you have given to us. Amen. We want to acknowledge our military and veterans and active or retired police officers and first responders. Will those people please stand? And if you'll remain standing, and everyone else join them in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. A few announcements before our speakers. If you have a brief 30-second announcement, we will again have time right before the door prize drawing for you to make those announcements. We'll be sure to have the microphone available to you. You are welcome to stay in the room for conversation after the meeting. Today, our venue is offering us a boxed lunch. It'll be back next to the beverage station. They'll be brought out during the door prize drawing. The lunch is $11. We have the room now until 1:30, so whether or not you have purchased the lunch, stick around and talk to people. Today is a special election voting day in Hennepin County for Hennepin County Commissioner District 6. This involves the following cities: Deep Haven, the north portion of Eden Prairie, Edina, Excelsior, Greenwood, Hopkins, Long Lake, Minnetonka Beach, the northern portion of Mound, Orono, Shorewood, Spring Park, Tonka Bay, Wayzata, and Woodland. I encourage you to vote. The Republican-endorsed candidate is Marissa Simonetti. She was endorsed at the CD3 convention and recommended by the CD5 convention, which only has a few Edina precincts that are in that district. This seat will be voted again in November, so no matter the outcome, Marissa will be running again for November. Okay, Dale has the reminders of which cities, if you didn't catch it and you want to know whether yours was one of them. Also, Sarah back there has a laptop she will look up based on your address. If you think you may be in that voting district, she can help you make sure you know where to go to vote. Your help is still requested each month on the third Thursday at the MNGOP office. That's just off of 494 and Highway 100. What we do is we get together and we stuff the PCR, the political campaign refund envelopes, and we have a good time. You might not think it'd be fun, but it really is. We work from 9:30 to 11:30, or however long you choose to hang around. I've got the information with the address and the upcoming dates. We are not doing it in May because the state convention is starting this Thursday, but the next time will be June 19th and 20th. So they do some Wednesday night, some Thursday. So come on up and take a look. Sign up if you want to come join us for that. The Lincoln Reagan Dinner fundraiser is this Friday. As most of you have probably heard, President Trump will be here in person for that dinner. I have the information about the dinner here. Tickets are going fairly fast, and so if you are thinking you want to go, be sure to get registered quickly. They'll provide the details. The location is provided once you sign up, but it is in St. Paul. The Center of American Experiment is having their fundraiser gala June 6th, so it's before our next meeting. Their keynote speaker will be former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. And I have more information about that event up here. Again, location is going to be either Minneapolis or St. Paul. They will give you the information once you sign up for a ticket. Our first speaker today is Kelly. She just got here through the traffic. Kelly Johnner Byrne is president of Minnesota Federation of Republican Women, and Kelly will speak to us about growing our organizations and ways to gain knowledge and be active in politics. Kelly is a seasoned entrepreneur and businesswoman with over 20 years of experience in politics. She was an endorsed candidate for the Minnesota House in 2020. In 2022, Kelly founded Candidate College, training over 70 aspiring candidates, campaign managers, and volunteers. She's also the founder of the 10,000 Lakes Republican Women, the 2022 nation's largest and fastest growing virtual club for conservative women. She was elected as president of the Minnesota Federation of Republican Women in 2023. Kelly continues to lead and innovate in both the political and business arenas. Please join me in welcoming Kelly Johnner Byrne.
Well, hello, everybody. No campaign speeches today from this girl. Whew, amen, sister. I don't want to trip Carol there. She's got the cord. And I hate being behind the thing. It must be from being the short girl in high school, right? So I'm Kelly Johnner Byrne. I'm the president of the Minnesota Federation of Republican Women. We have one of our amazing representatives. I know you all know her, Elaine in the back. She is with one of our our largest club, local club that is not a virtual club. So I want to just share with you a couple of tips today. How many of you think that we need to grow the conservative movement? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you think that our world has gone bat crap crazy? I'm just checking. Okay. And it's getting crazier because I live in Woodbury and we have a cat burglar for a senator. How many of you know about that? Raise your hand. If not, there's this thing called Google. Do a Google search. We need to get her out of office. And yes, if she does get bipped, I probably will put my name in the hat because I've lived in my city for 28 years and I was an endorsed candidate. Funny thing, I was on the ballot when Trump was on the ballot in 2020. And we both went to the... But we're not going to do that again this time, are we, folks? No more of this, right? We're going to go anti that. Well, I want to tell you a little bit about the Federation. After running for Secretary of State, I've been involved in Minnesota politics since 2002. And it's been a great education, and it has been a great disappointment, and it has been a source of great joy. Right now, I'm just going to say we're on the D word. And I'm sick of the D's. I think we need to get the R's back. And so the Federation, I want to share with you what we actually do and what the Federation is about. So the National Federation of Republican Women started in 1938, and it was actually a part of the Republican Party. And what happened is the women wanted the opportunity to kind of do their own thing. And I don't mean that to go off in crazy land, but they were starting to get Republicans and conservatives elected, and they too wanted to be elected. And so since 1938, the Federation has grown strong. In Minnesota, we have about 438-ish members, and we have 14 clubs. And yes, after running for SOS and not receiving the endorsement, you can either take your toys and go home and pout, or you can do something. And I call on all of you in this room to do something. Because you can't do everything, but we can do something. It could be make a phone call. It could help fundraise. It could be, be involved with Republican seniors. If you're one of the ladies, you could join one of our clubs, and gentlemen can join too. You just don't get to vote. It's kind of like it is in your house. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like that. So you pay, but you don't get to vote. And I like it that way. It's fine. And if any of you have a problem with that, talk to Elaine. She's my wing woman, and she'll set you straight. So, but gentlemen can join. They just don't have the ability to vote. But the Federation has grown to incredible heights. And what I want to do is just tell you two quick stories about things that I have witnessed. And Elaine was there with me. We went to our national meeting. It happens every 2 years, our convention. And we changed the course of the Federation. And I'll take you back. They had a slate of officers that were running. The challenge is the person that was running to be president had caved. And they caved to something that bothers me a lot, the transgender issue. I wake up every morning and I don't wonder if I'm a boy or a girl. What we're doing is we are disguising mental illness, which is terrible. Depression, anxiety, it's terrible, and it needs to be addressed. But it doesn't need to be addressed by putting a dress on it. Are you with me? That go over your head? Okay, just checking. So what happened at our national convention was absolutely amazing. We didn't run, I take zero credit. But there were other women that were not going to kowtow, and they stood up, and there was 4 from the floor, and we eliminated folks that might have been taking us down the wrong road. They thought they were in. They thought they were elected. Right, Elaine? They thought they had it all in the bag. Well, that cat got let out of the bag, and hopefully we'll have another cat in Woodbury let out of that bag. But what happened is the Federation became stronger. Our president, Julie Harris, who actually lives in Washington, D.C., we have about a $2.1 million budget for the Federation, not Minnesota, but for the Federation, and we have 7 full-time employees that work and do lobbying and work with our senators and congressmen and women to move the agenda forward. They're working very, very hard. I had the great pleasure to be out in D.C. As the representative from Minnesota. So what does it all mean, and what happens here? Well, our South Dakota sisters have jumped in across the border and helped door knock and do some of those things that need to happen with, a copious number of volunteers, right? And so what happens is this year, the Federation is really working on boots on the ground to help some of those states that might need a little help and more volunteers, and they're bringing them in. Isn't that an amazing thing that states can work together? Americans can work together. Women can work together. I think it's amazing. So what's happening here in Minnesota? Here the Federation is partnering with the Leadership Institute so we can do more education for women. And you know what we're doing? I'm in the senior set. I'm 57. I'm really not a day over 40. I'm sure of it. I'm still cool with my 17-year-old son, but I'm in this senior mode. So what do we need to do? We need to make an impression on our daughters and our granddaughters and their friends, because we need to share with them that if you don't start to adopt it's my problem too attitude, soon it will not be your problem. Soon you will have no choices. And that is not an America I want to live in, and nor do I want my son or my stepdaughter to live in. That is an America that is unrecognizable. And for all of those that fought and gave their lives so that we could be free, we owe it to them and our younger generations. And so we are on a massive recruiting. And that is to get more women to take a look at us. I will tell you what we don't do. We don't give money to campaigns or candidates. We can't. But we can be at fundraisers, and we can be door knocking, and we can be doing all of those things. And those are the sorts of things that we do. We can provide education and insight and an unbiased amount of education and insight so that the younger generations who are right now seeing their college experience riddled, absolutely torn apart, and fear for their safety because mom's not in charge anymore. We got Ding Dong Biden up there who gets up at about 10 and he eats breakfast the night before, lunch at about, 10 o'clock in the morning. And, what the heck? This is crazy. It's absolute craziness. So this is a little bit of what's going on with the Federation. We are going to have the Leadership Institute come in, and for the first time ever, we will be Zooming some of that fundraising and friend-raising. We need to do both. Fundraising and friend-raising training, and then also some messaging. So all of our Federation members, men and women, will be able to jump in free of charge on Zoom in the morning, and then there'll be another training in the afternoon to learn a little bit more. And it's provided to our members at no cost. What is membership? On average, it depends on the club, but it's $45. And you are there. You can join the local club. You're also a member of the Minnesota Federation and the national. And all of that training comes down, and it's free of charge to all of us. So what's the path going forward for us? I wanted to share a few bits about how to grow membership, how to friend raise, and how to fundraise. So it's all based on what I speak on when I talk to corporations. That's what I do for a living. It's not this. I talk about cash. And if you're writing anything down, cash is an acronym. When you put more cash into any organization, it will naturally grow. So what does cash stand for? The C is clarity and confidence. When we can equip conservatives or questioners, right? Those people that are, I'm not sure if I'm a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. If we can help people with clarity around our message, what we stand for and what we don't stand for, we build confidence. How many of you have ever had to get up in front of a room and, introduce yourself? Like these guys, I walk in the door, I didn't even get a cup of coffee, and now I'm up here. What the heck? Seniors, I thought you were more hospitable than that. I'll get one on the way out. But, when we have clarity, we have confidence. When we can clearly state to young women, we can make them more confident, and they just might run for office, for school board, for city council, whatever it might be. The A in cash is action and accountability. We cannot just sit idly by. There's so many people that are sitting there thumbing and scrolling and watching other people's lives where our lives are being denigrated and driven right into the dirt. My son only gets so much scroll time. He still has to be cool. He still has to be, there, right? But do something. Action and accountability, we can all take it. And service. Every one of us is in sales. Every single one of you in here is talking about, the Republican Seniors Organization. You're selling the organization if you're a positive person or if you're a negative person. And this is what I would challenge you all to be. Minnesota is going to be a battleground. When we were out in D.C., we had the opportunity to work with Trump's press secretary. Beautiful young woman. She's having a baby now and will be back with him after her baby. But the interesting thing is she was the youngest woman to ever run for Congress. Amazing. She did not win, blue state, out east. But she gave it her all, and she made a name for herself, and she helped other young women to see what is possible. That's the serving. And then the H is help. Help harness the skills that you have. If you're not a speaker, a front of house person, then don't try to put somebody else in, put yourself into that role. Too often we burn out our volunteers only because we're putting them into jobs that they really don't want to do. How many of you have had the post at your church or something, for like ever? Right? And you're ready for somebody new to step up, right? Or in some organization. We have to develop other leadership. Take people by the hand. So if you put a little bit of cash into what you're doing, you will grow your membership and we will grow the conservative movement. Here are two things that I'm telling everybody, and I'll leave you with this. I'm telling every one of our folks that are considering running for office, we have a couple. Rita Hillman Olson is running for office in her area. She's running for House. Yay. We also have, we have several others, and my brain is a little blank. Like I said, I didn't have all the coffee I needed this morning to be here.
Excuse me.
Oh, God. You know what? Who does he belong to? Because he is a keeper. John, thank you. I love you. Oh, what a sweetheart. The last thing I want to leave you with, napkin and all on, my God.
By the way, John Nagel is running for House against Larry Kraft. That would be neat.
Okay, there you go. See, look at that. No politician leaves a good opportunity unturned, right? Give him a hand. Give him a hand. Come on. We got to have some fun. Many of our members are holding office right now. Senator Julia Coleman is one of our members. She's a member of the Virtual Club. We've got Marge Fogelman down in CD1. Rita Hillman Olson is running. Dar Vosberg is running again. She's in the Mankato area. She is a business owner, and she's growing a Mankato club in a very blue area, and they are bursting. The Federation is alive and well, and we are growing. And I'll leave you with this. If you'd like to join us, we would love to have you. You can join the virtual club if you want, or you can join a traditional club where they meet live. Whatever makes most sense for you, we would love to have you. But here's a caveat. Any club that you join in Minnesota is soon going to be a member of the Virtual Club Coalition. What's that? That means that you will get to see all of our national speakers. We had Mike Huckabee, we've had Senator Johnson, we had Tom Emmer, and it gives you the opportunity in a smaller forum to actually ask questions and be online. So we get rid of the velvet ropes, the $500 step over the thing to get in and ask a question. We're eliminating that. The women are breaking down the barriers. We want to put more cash into this election. I believe that we are going to change. All we need to do is get rid of a couple of crazy women senators. Yes, guys, there are crazy women out there. We are not one of them. Just so you know. The women in here are not, but there are some crazy ones out there. We need to flip those and gain a few more House seats. And I couldn't be more proud of our members for stepping up. Thank you to everyone. I wish you all a beautiful and blessed summer. I hope that every one of you will take a peek and look at mnfrw.com. There are some brochures back there. I hope that you will ask my friend Elaine, who has been involved with the Federation for so many years. She has been an absolute angel to me when I've asked her questions. She's been able to answer them because literally I started a club, became the president, and then became the president of the state. Republicans, conservative friends, we need to move swiftly. The time is now. Get off your walkers, your wheelchairs, your rollers, your high heels, whatever it is, your seat. Get out of the bridge club, and it's time to get moving. And that is my charge to you. Have a great day, everyone.
Dynamite. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Coffee in hand. She has a chance to relax a little bit now. What a wonderful start to our meeting. Next, we will hear from our U.S. Senate candidate, Joe Fraser, who is seeking Republican endorsement later this week at the state convention. Joe, come on up. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, present your information, and an extra minute for Q&A if you choose. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Carol. Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see you. So how many people, we're due polling this morning, how many people have heard of me? I'm curious. That's good. All right. For those of you who haven't heard of me, I am running, obviously, to put Amy Klobuchar on the unemployment line this year. It's time for the senator of little things to go. So tell you a little bit about who I am. I am a retired naval intelligence officer. I served for almost 26 years in the United States Navy. I started off my career as an enlisted sailor after graduating from the best university in the world, as Don Patton will agree with me, Texas A&M. And I just found out this morning that Don and I went to the same school, so I'm going to play on that a little bit. But after serving my time, I retired. And I picked up my wife along the way. She's also a Navy veteran, and we have a 17-year-old daughter getting ready to graduate high school. I currently work in the private sector as an executive director in a large financial institution's IT division as their chief of staff. Why am I running? Because of what we just heard about from Kelly. The world is on fire. We have an absence of leadership coming out of the Senate. We have an absence of leadership that comes out of the White House. And we need a voice that's going to get in there and say, enough is enough. We have to stop this. This insanity has got to stop. We have $34 trillion in debt. We continue to print money, and if you wonder why we have a dollar that's worth less than a dollar because of inflation, it's because we've printed so much money, we've devalued it. So we need to get back to basics. We need to make sure that the government can function, that it can pay its bills, and that it doesn't overcommit itself. It has to make sure that we reinforce and Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid are survivable. These are things and commitments and promises that the government has made in partnership with the citizens for almost 100 years. These are things that are important. We need to get our spending under control. We need to get leadership in the Senate that's going to advocate for border security, national security, defending our streets, backing our blue, doing the things that put common sense politics in play. We need to feel safe in our cities. We need to have students who know how to read at their grade level. We need to have an educated populace. Democracy doesn't work, and I know we live in a democratic republic, but that conversation doesn't work if the populace is not informed. And we have half a society that is not informed, and they are playing off of that. The political puppet masters on the Democratic side are playing on an uninformed electorate. They want that to continue because that allows them to grow their base. We need to fight that. And Kelly's spot on. We need to get engaged and active, and that's why I'm here today. So I've just been told I've run through my time, so I have 1 minute left to open the floor to questions, and then we can go from there. Anybody have a question for me? No one? Wow. All right. Ma'am.
I'm a positive person, but you've got the Klobuchar machine. I'm a real positive person. Yeah. But how are you going to go up against the Klobuchar machine? Like you say, there's so many people that are uninformed, and they see the D, and they just fill in the hole. And what are you going to do? I mean, I'm voting for you. I've heard you on the radio, and you're awesome.
I appreciate that.
But what are you going to do?
So it's almost like I teed you up and planted you in the audience to ask that question. So everybody, you're right. There's this mystique that has been about Amy since she's been in office, right? But she has a failed presidency that she has to defend, or presidential bid, right? This is the first election after her failed presidential candidacy. And one of the reasons why she dropped out is because she wasn't going to win her home state. Bernie Sanders was going to win the home state in the primary against her. So she dropped. She is highly unpopular for a 3-term senator. She's stuck at 51% approval rating right now, and I firmly believe the reason is because we haven't gotten out my name yet. And that's part of what we do here, right, is getting out there and have an opportunity to engage with the electorate to inform that there is an option to have a different representative. This isn't a year for change. President Trump is tied with President Biden in this state with Kennedy on the ballot. You pull Kennedy off the ballot, Trump wins Minnesota. Think about that. We have opportunity and runway in front of us to really make a difference based on the fact that you have an unpopular president, you have an unpopular candidate for office, not where she should be for somebody who's going up for a 4th term, and you have an economy and a society that's in shambles. And they have to defend all that. So we're going to do our best, and I'm going to enlist all of you to help me. I need your help. This is a team effort, right? I can be the person standing out in front and taking all the shots and the lightning rounds and all the rest of that stuff, but I need you behind me. I need a strong, supportive base that's going to help me get the vote out, get the word out, and say we can make a difference and we can change this state and take it the way it needs to go. And I go, then I bet you got 4 seats coming behind us in the House. You have an opportunity to flip the other Senate seat in 26 and the gubernatorial election in 26 as well. If we pull all that along, we can change the face of Minnesota and get it back to common sense, common ground, good politics. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Now, Don Parker from the Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life will brief us on the DFL legislative actions that are working to minimize the rights of people of faith in Minnesota. And there are brochures on your table from MCCL. Don?
Thank you, Carol. The next couple of talks are going to go back and look at our heritage a little bit. Ken is going to talk about some of the founders, 56 of the founders. And I'm going to start by talking about when Minnesota became a state. That's in the news a lot now, right? The anniversary of Minnesota's statehood was last Saturday. And the news is we got a new emblem in the state of Minnesota, right? But let's talk about the good. The other thing we got on May 11th of 1858 is a state constitution. And like with the federal constitution, it embodied values that the people had back then and that we, all of us, are fighting to keep. Those important values. Think about some of the things that went into that Constitution. We had a ban on slavery. We had a democratic, Republican, representative form of government. And I say democratic because, there were townships that met democratically, but we're a Republican form of government that enabled us, through our representatives, to do great things. Not long after that Constitution, the legislature passed laws to protect all humans in Minnesota, including the unborn, and other laws that helped us grow and prosper and carry our values. Among them in the Constitution were two provisions that protect our religious liberties, our rights. As in the First Amendment in the U.S. Constitution, we have those protections in Minnesota. But we might not have them for long. At the legislature right now, and the latest iteration of this, the latest debate went till 1 o'clock this morning. I'll give you a quick update. Some of you probably watched that. The Democratic Party, or at least almost all of them, are trying to fundamentally change that Constitution that reflected the values that I talked about. And we all understand as Republicans, no Constitution gives us those values. No Constitution gives us those rights. Those rights are inherent in us as children of God, and the Constitutions reflect those values. Why is that important? Because men and women elected for a short period of time at the legislature have no right to take those values away because their government did not give them to us. And you can read all about Jefferson and the other founders who will tell us that that is the source of those rights, not what these people vote for and what they write in documents. The documents reflect the rights. So what are they trying to do at the legislature? They are trying to add what they call an equal rights amendment. And when I'm done, you can look at the gold sheet and see some of the things that they want to take away from the current Constitution that would make it an unequal rights amendment. First of all, they want to enshrine that abortion, the killing of a child, can happen at any stage, for any reason, at any place in the state of Minnesota without even any kind of medical review. That is, abortion up to birth. There was a version of this Equal Rights Amendment last year that did not include abortion. It passed the Senate. And it did include a very important word or concept, creed. So it said that the state may not discriminate on the basis of race, color, creed, national origin, age, disability, etc. Guess what? The new version, which was not written in the legislature but was written by a group called Gender Justice, and that means what it sounds: complete abortion up to birth, complete rights to all the gender issues, transition, not dependent on age. That is, a 12-year-old can decide they want to transition under this Constitution, and they will have a right to do so without parental input. Not even parental consent, without parental input. And the same with minors having abortions. So it's a very libertine, extreme notion of what Minnesota should be. And under the Senate version, parents and people of faith would at least have some counter rights to try to establish in the courts that they have some rights to protect their children, that churches have a right to not participate in having to hire people that don't agree with their philosophy, that church schools and private schools would have such rights. That would all be taken away, because in this House version, which the House wants to pass soon and send to the Senate, they've removed the word creed. They've also removed the word age. And all of us should think about what that could possibly mean. A couple years ago, I was honored to be able to speak here about Governor Walz's attack on mostly elderly, but some disabled people in nursing homes during COVID. He shuttled people into institutions that had COVID, and Minnesota had the second highest death rate in the entire state. So those deaths are on his hands. And now, in furtherance of this idea that the elderly are disposable, they don't want to put age in the new version of the Constitution that they would pass. They don't want to protect for age. And they don't want to protect for creed. So what is left, right? It's the libertine ideals of a far, far left fringe of Minnesota that would be enshrined in the Constitution under the guise of equal rights. So many Minnesotans would think this is the old Equal Rights Amendment that gives women the same rights as men, and they would vote for it. And they wouldn't know that there's age discrimination allowed, and that's meant on both ends of life, right? The elderly, they wouldn't be able to stand and say they have a right to medical treatment that might save their lives. And the young, if there's no age discrimination, no age limits, then it's one more reason parents can't stop their children from going to get transitioned or have an unknown abortion, etc. Minnesota copies New York and California in a lot of its laws, and this constitutional amendment proposal is almost identical to New York's that the people are voting on. Well, the judge stopped it temporarily, but the people were supposed to vote on it in New York this fall. The language is almost identical in terms of the right to abortion, the right to all the gender stuff. The state shall not discriminate on the basis of race, color, but New York says creed and religion. Radical New York has in their almost identical constitutional amendment proposal, creed and religion would be protected. Churches, people of faith, institutions of faith like charities and schools could stand up and assert some rights that they wouldn't be able to in Minnesota. I want to mention, that's how far left we've gone. I want to mention a deception. The second sheet that I passed around is an advertisement. This is one of many from MCCL's Political Action Committee that is being run or will be run against the people on the Rules Committee, 9 Democrats who voted for this, and it calls them out for the deception of not mentioning abortion in this constitutional amendment, but only saying pregnancy. That's all you'll see on the ballot. But the back language you won't see on the ballot defines pregnancy to include the right to become or remain pregnant, meaning abortion up to birth. The 9 Democrats who voted for that on the Rules Committee are going to be called out for that lie. And the one you happen to have is the first one that we produced, but there are several in the Twin Cities area here that will be getting those ads either online or in a newspaper or in radio or elsewhere very soon. So we are hitting back. I want to ask you to do one thing, please. Please, on the gold sheet is the phone number of your state senator. The House is probably going to pass this, although a word of thanks. Your Republican legislators last night filibustered on a bill for 7 hours. It was a 20-minute bill. They filibustered for 7 hours. And the next 20-minute bill, they filibustered for about 4 more hours until the Democrats said, okay, we'll back off and take this constitutional amendment off the agenda for yesterday. So we have, please thank them if you get a chance. Every single Republican was heroic. They all talked, and they talked, and they talked, and all of them came up, and they stalled this out, and now it's scheduled for Wednesday. Please call your senator and get everybody you know across the state to call their state senator. There's a phone number on there. You tell them where you live. The people at that phone number will tell you the number of your senator if you don't have it, because the House probably will pass it. The Senate has some wavering Democrats who might not. We can't let them change not only our Constitution, which reflects our values, but who we are and who the next generations are as a people in Minnesota. We have to stop this. Thank you. Bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Don. Now, I am pleased to welcome our featured speaker. Reverend Dr. Kenneth Beale is Senior Chaplain at the historic Fort Snelling Chapel. He'll be speaking on the topic, Our Lives, Our Fortunes, Our Sacred Honor. The how and why for our beloved republic are so much better known and understood than the who. United States of America was born in 1776, but was conceived 169 years earlier in Jamestown, Virginia. During our next 40 minutes, we'll be considering some of the lesser-known signers of the Declaration of Independence. Chaplain Beale served 25 years of commissioned service in the U.S. Army. His retirement with the rank of colonel was in October 2012. He completed multiple chaplain courses during his career, and he is a graduate of the U.S. Army War College, where he received a Master's of Strategic Studies graduate degree in 2010. Since 2000, Reverend Beale has preached regularly at the historic Fort Snelling Chapel, and the Sunday services there begin at 11 a.m. Reverend Beale lives in Woodbury with his wife Kathy. Together they are the parents of 5 adult children and 19 grandchildren? Not 20 yet, huh? Please join me in welcoming Reverend Dr. Kenneth Beale.
Thank you very much. I'm on a wireless mic, so let me just do a sound check. Everybody able to hear in the back? You can hear? Okay. Don's waving. I am not a graduate of Texas A&M, but Don and I are graduates together of the U.S. Army War College. So that's our common denominator. Nobody here went to the same high school I did, and that's a good thing, because if you did, you no doubt outranked me within the ranked structure of graduates of Upper Dublin High School in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania. People assume because I've earned a doctorate degree that, boy, you must have been pretty smart in high school. And the truth be known, I was in that half of my high school class that made the top half possible. Right? So I was not a very good student, and particularly on the subject at hand, and that is history. I, like perhaps many of you, thought, what's the point of studying this stuff of the past? You know, we live in the present. We live in the now. Why do we need to understand this matter of American history? Well, I certainly, for one, have come to appreciate very much so our American history. And I will share with you in that some names of among the 56 signers today. And I do that in the belief that names are important to us. I truly believe that. Your organization clearly recognizes that by asking you all to wear a name tag so that you can call one another by name. You know, they say the sweetest sound to anybody's ears is their name sweetly spoken. And I think many of us can relate to that. I do remember, though, my mother calling me, and it wasn't necessarily Kenny or Ken, it was Kenneth. And then if she threw the middle name in, then I knew I'd better jump to her command. But names are important to us, and it reminds me at this time of year, it's the end of the college semester, and many students, college students, are engaged in finals. And I want to tell you the story about one final exam that was administered in a college. Picture it, if you would, with me, is this massive auditorium to which about 75 students have come and gathered to take their final exam. and their course of study is the study of birds. And what the professor did was instructed all the students, take out a piece of paper and write from number 1 to 75. And with that, he proceeded to unload a bag of birds' legs with little tag with a number on it. And you were to look at the bird's leg and then write down on your corresponding sheet what that bird was on the basis of their legs. Well, if you can picture this with me in this amphitheater, there was one student who was very frustrated with this task, and he slammed down his pencil and he started to walk out of the classroom. And the professor down in the front, peering over top of his glasses, looks up and he calls out and he says, "Young man, where do you think you're going?" While he pulls out a pen to register him as a failure. And the student turned around and said, "Well, this is ridiculous, trying to identify birds by their legs." And before he got out the door, the professor said, "What's your name?" And that student turned around and said, "You tell me." All that to illustrate the importance of names. And today we're going to be introduced to some names. Some will be familiar, while others are not necessarily familiar. And as was mentioned in the description or introduction shared moments ago, the how and the why of our beloved republic is so much better known than the who of the people who participated in 1776 in the birth of our country. And I want to challenge you as you listen to this presentation and we take this little walk back in history, something which I think we perhaps don't do often enough, to look at our past and appreciate what has brought us to this point. I'm going to ask you, rather than be thinking about Q&A at the end of this with some question pertaining to this history, I want you to think about today. You're all here, presumably as Republicans. Here in this gathering, you're concerned. We've heard from political figures today. And I want you to think seriously about what's going on in America today, to which in this presentation, you might see some parallels. Well, as my title suggests, our founding fathers, I want to point out to you, had everything to lose and nothing to gain, except one thing: their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honors. You may not be able to quote any lines from the Declaration of Independence, but from henceforth, you will always know at least one line. It's the last paragraph, where you will recall it says, "We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." You recognize those impressive words, but let's examine who are among the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence 248 years ago, this coming Independence Day. Hey, and if you don't grasp anything else, my congregation knows this. When I throw out the words, "This is a freebie," that means it's not in my manuscript, but it's something I'm giving you that has struck me and I want you to take away from. Would you join me in ceasing to call it the 4th of July? It's Independence Day, okay? Everybody's got a 4th of July. Every country's got a 4th of July. But in the United States of America, we have an Independence Day that is celebrated on the 4th. Would you do that? I hope you will join me to that endeavor. Well, In the Pennsylvania State House, which incidentally I don't think was in my intro, I was born in Philadelphia. So if you hear anything resembling an accent or a mispronunciation of names, it's an East Coast thing, okay? But I was born in Philadelphia and was raised in the Philadelphia area and had all my schooling back in Pennsylvania. But here in the Pennsylvania State House, which is now called Independence Hall in Philadelphia, listen, the best of men from each of the 13 colonies sat down together. It was a fortunate hour. I, as a clergy, would say it was divine providence in our nation's history. One of those rare occasions in the lives of men when we had greatness to spare. These were men of means. They were well educated. 24 of the 56 were lawyers and jurists. 9 were farmers and owners of large plantations. There we go. Well, on June the 11th, a committee sat down to draft the Declaration of Independence. They were going to declare colonial independence from the British Crown. The document would list charges against King George III. Now, we could have a little fun and test how many of the 27 grievances are listed in that declaration. Most of us probably only remember the taxation without representation. But there were actually 27 grievances against King George III, which aimed to demonstrate that he had violated the colonists' rights and is therefore unfit to be their ruler. Are you still thinking about today? Okay. That's a freebie. Below the dam of ruthless foreign rule, the stream of freedom was running shallow and muddy. We were lighting the fuse to dynamite that dam. And this pact, as Burke later put it, was a partnership between the living and the dead and the yet unborn. It's you and I. There was no bigotry in this group. All had shared hardships. Well, Thomas Jefferson finished a draft of the document in 17 days, by June the 28th. And Congress then adopted it on the 4th of July of 1776. Well, so much for the very all-familiar portions of this document. King George III of Great Britain had denounced all rebels in the American colony as traitors. Deplorables. The punishment for treason was hanging. The names now so familiar to you from the signatures on the Declaration of Independence were kept secret for 6 months. For each knew that the meaning of that last paragraph, in which a signature pledged his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor. 56 men placed their names beneath that pledge. 56 men knew at the point in which they signed it that they were risking everything. They knew that if they won this fight, the best they could expect would be years of hardship as a struggling nation. If they lost, they'd face the hangman's rope. But they signed the pledge, and they did indeed pay the price. And by the way, I provided you a handout. If you want that handout and there wasn't enough, I think they have some more elsewhere. Please be sure and pick it up. But I'm building this all on the basis of this painting that is one of the murals in the rotunda of our nation's capital on the Declaration of Independence. And those of you who are right on top of things, you're going to probably think, well, there's not 56 names under this drawing. Well, that's because, remember the date I just gave you of June the 28th, the draft came forward, was presented. Yes, on June the 28th. This portrait portrays that, and the committee of 5 that drafted it are the 5 that are standing there right in the front. Okay? So look at your handout that I provided you. At the moment of June the 28th, all 56 delegates were not present. But the committee of 5 are standing there at the front desk. Okay? Well, 5 signers of the Declaration of Independence were captured by the British during the course of the Revolutionary War. None of them died when a prisoner, and 4 of them were taken into custody, not because they were considered traitors due to their status as signers of the document, but because they were captured as prisoners of war while actively engaged in military operations against the British. George Walton of Georgia was captured after being wounded while commanding a militia at the Battle of Savannah in December of 1778. And Thomas Hayward, Jr., Arthur Middleton, and Edward Rutledge, 3 of the 4 signers from South Carolina, were taken prisoner at the siege of Charleston in May of 1780. And although they endured the ill treatment typically afforded to prisoners of war during their captivity, just deplorable conditions, they were not tortured, nor is there any evidence that they were treated more harshly than other wartime prisoners because they were signatories of the Declaration. Moreover, all 4 men were evidently exchanged or released. Had they been considered traitors by the British, they would most certainly have been hanged. Richard Stockton of New Jersey was the only signer taken prisoner specifically because of his status as a signator to the Declaration. He was dragged from his bed by night by some local Tories after he had evacuated his family from New Jersey and was imprisoned in New York City's infamous Provost Jail like a common criminal. Abraham Clark of New Jersey saw 2 of his sons captured by the British and incarcerated on a prison ship named Jersey. John Witherspoon, also of New Jersey, saw his eldest son James killed in the Battle of Germantown in October of 1777. Before the American Revolution, Carter Baxton of Virginia was one of the minority of delegates reluctant to support the American Declaration of Independence. Having a considerable fortune invested in commercial enterprises, particularly that of shipping, he endured severe financial reversals during the Revolutionary War when many of his ships had been taken, appropriated by the British government, or were sunk, or were captured by the British. He suffered significant financial loss. In fact, he had to sell off landholding assets to cover the debts incurred by the loss of his ships. Among his many offices, Thomas McLean was a delegate from Delaware to the Continental Congress, in which he later became the president of that Congress. He was the president of Delaware. He was Chief Justice of Pennsylvania. He became the governor of Pennsylvania. And in a letter that he wrote to John Adams back in 1777, he described how he had been hunted like a fox by the enemy, compelled to remove my family 5 times in 3 months, and at last fixed them in a little log house on the banks of the Susquehanna River, but then soon was obligated to move again on an account of the Indians. Interestingly, his name does not appear on printed copies of the Declaration authenticated in January of 1777. So it is likely that he did not affix his name until later. He did serve in a military capacity as a volunteer leader of the militia. Ellery of Rhode Island and Clymer of Pennsylvania, Hall, Gwinnett, and Walton of Georgia, Hayward, Rutledge, and Middleton of South Carolina were among the number of signers who saw their homes and property occupied, ransacked, and looted, and vandalized by the British, even in some case by the fellow Americans. That was a common part of warfare. Signers' homes were not specifically targeted for destruction, but like many other Americans, their property was subject to seizure when it fell in the path of war being waged in the North American continent. The Hessians seized the home of Francis Hopkinson of New Jersey. Francis Lewis of New York had his home and everything destroyed. His wife imprisoned. She died a few years later. Richard Stockton of New Jersey was captured and mistreated, and his health broken to the extent that he died at 51. His estate was pillaged. John Hart's New Jersey farm of fields and gristmill were looted in the course of the Revolutionary War. For some time thereafter, he lived in the forests and in caves. Thomas Nelson, Jr. of Virginia, raised $2 million. Imagine back then. $2 million on his own signature to make provisions for our allies, the French fleet. And after the war, he personally paid back the loans and wiped out his entire estate. He was never reimbursed by his government. In the final battle of Yorktown, he, Nelson, allegedly urged General Washington to fire upon his own home, which was being occupied by British Major General Cornwallis, who had taken it over to use as his headquarters in 1781. Other versions of the story have Nelson directing Lafayette to train French artillery onto his home. But whatever the truth, the Nelson home was not destroyed, as it stands to this day as part of Colonial National Historic Park. The National Park Service's describe of it notes that the southeast face of the residence does show evidence of damage from cannon fire. Nelson died bankrupt at the age of 53. Would he even be old enough to be a part of this group? He could? Oh, okay. All right. Well, Lewis Morris saw his Westchester County, New York home taken over in 1776 and used as a barracks for the Continental Army soldiers. His horses and livestock on his farm were commandeered by military personnel. And shortly thereafter, his home was appropriated by the British, but Morris and his wife reclaimed the property and restored their home after the war. Philip Livingston lost several properties to the British occupation of New York and sold off others to support the war effort. And he did not recover them because he suddenly died in 1778 before the war even ended. John Hancock, history remembers, best due to a quirk of fate rather than anything that he stood for. That great sweeping signature attesting to his role as president of the Continental Congress towers over all the others. But the wealthiest man of New England stood outside of Boston one terrible night of the war, and he said this: "Burn, Boston, though it makes John Hancock a beggar, if the public good requires it." He too, would you not agree, lived up to the pledge. A common misconception is that the signing of the Declaration of Independence was that event that triggered the Revolutionary War, so that the signers were directly responsible for whatever misfortune befell them and their fellow Americans as a result of that war. But the war actually began more than a year before the signing of the Declaration. Revolutionary events involved armed conflicts such as the battles of Lexington and Concord, the seizure of Fort Ticonderoga by Ethan Allen and his Green Mountain Boys, and the Battle of Bunker Hill, and the capture of Montreal by General Richard Montgomery, all took place in 1775. What should we take from all of this? The signers of the Declaration of Independence took a huge risk in daring to put their names on a document that rejected British rule. And they had every reason to believe at that time that they might be hung for having done so. That was a courageous act that we should indeed remember and honor on the 4th of July amidst our picnics and our games. We should not lose sight of the fact that many men and women, other than the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, some famous, most not, risked and sacrificed much, including their lives, to support the revolutionary cause. The hardships and losses endured by many Americans during the struggle for independence were not visited upon the signers alone, nor were they any less disastrous for people whose names are not immortalized on a piece of parchment. I don't know what impressed you of the men who, on that hot summer in Philadelphia, but I think it's important that we remember this about them. They were not poor men or wide-eyed pirates. They were men of means, rich men, most of them, who enjoyed much ease and luxury in their personal living. Not hungry men, but prosperous men. Wealthy landowners, substantially secure in their prosperity. But they considered liberty so much more important than security that they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. And they fulfilled their pledge. They paid the price and freedom was born. Amen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beale. Are there questions? Do you have a curiosity about any of the names mentioned?
Or observations of what's going on today.
Okay, Karen, you've got a microphone for someone there?
Okay. My question has to do with the final resolution of the Revolutionary War, and what was that date when it was ended?
I would think most would measure it the surrender at Yorktown by, it's mentioned, at the home of Nelson, of which I have to lean on others for that date.
Okay, I can look that up.
Okay.
Surrender.
Pardon me? 1781? 1781, thank you.
1781, thank you.
Long war, actually, and with a very split communities. I mean, we're not unique to having split communities. Those Tories, those who were loyal to the crown, and then the revolutionary ones, the colonials. Yes, you got a hand there, okay?
How does this group of people that you've just described compare to Joe Biden and his career colleagues?
You're asking me? Let's keep that mic moving. Well, it's certainly for me, this administration is tyranny, which is what the revolution was fought over, right? The king of England was ignoring the citizenry. He was denying them their rights. Boy, we had some fresh and great reminders of that today, of some things. In fact, if I may, and whenever my closing moments are, I had the opportunity to offer prayer last Thursday before our House of Representatives. And I would like to, if I may, I'll close my portion with that prayer, reciting and reading that prayer. Yes? Yeah, so please, you don't, microphone? Okay.
Yeah, these gentlemen who signed the Declaration, how many of these people were part of the Continental Congress?
They all were.
They all
they were all delegates of the 13 colonies to be there.
And
Yeah.
with the tremendous financial burden, we saw how Morris gave a lot of his wealth.
Yes.
Any comments about some of these other signers that also lost their wealth in this project we had?
Well, I mean, I guess for everybody, he had a big price tag, but I would imagine most all of us would consider it would be a great sacrifice to lose any of your property, wouldn't it? Your home. I mean, look what the Bill of Rights that were put into play about being able to go into your home. Mar-a-Lago. Oh. Did that come through? Oh. Okay. Yeah, so I would say that many of them made sacrifice. And I can tell you, I could answer in part by saying, I don't know of any of them who would say they profited by the revolution. Now think of the difference of today about profiting. Sitting on choice, having choice access to information to go and hurry up and buy those stocks because they're going to soar. Okay? Yeah, great sacrifice. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the signers are frequently characterized as old white men. I've heard they're as young as 25. Do you have any input on their ages, their actual ages?
Ooh, I don't. But that's a great question. I know there was one very elderly. I think it was I mentioned from New Jersey. In fact, they had difficulties at times. They had to carry him in so that he could cast a vote. But But I think he was like in his 80s. Of course, Benjamin Franklin was no young pup. And he's there. He's portrayed. He was part of that committee that helped to put the Declaration together. But boy, can't you see, have you ever been on a committee? And in this case, there were 5 of them. And they just decided, let's just give this to Tommy Boy. Let Jefferson take the shot at this and write it. And I understand he was quite horrified when it went before the Congress and they started slashing it. What I remember very well in my high school days of red ink, I would have a lot of red ink on my papers, aside from the letter at the top that was more than likely a D or something like that. Okay, is there another question? One more? Okay.
Just want to share a wonderful experience I had in Independence Hall.
Okay.
If you go there, you can take a tour conducted by a U.S. Ranger, forest ranger. We went on the tour, walked into that room. There was a new picture. There's about a 3-foot wall between the original desks and other paraphernalia that those people sat at.
Yeah.
And I asked the ranger what her favorite part of the tour was. And she said, my favorite part is when I get to stand on the side of the wall next to the original desks because it makes me feel so much closer to our founders.
Yes.
It's a very moving moment.
Yeah. When I was a kid growing up in Philadelphia, I actually got to be able to put my hands all over the Liberty Bell because it still sat in Independence Hall. Now it's in some bulletproof outside thing with ropes around that you can't get near it, but my hands were all over the crack of the Liberty Bell.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Can I close with the prayer? Okay. This is the prayer I offered. Now you got to put yourself in the setting of the House of Representatives of Minnesota. Make sure you're sitting on the correct side of the aisle. But here's the prayer that I offered, and I wasn't going to do this except the earlier presenter who reminded us of taking what's inalienable rights, okay, that is God-given rights. Here's what I told the House of Representatives. May we unite together in prayer. O Creator God, who established and defined the institutions of family, government, and the church for the care and welfare of your creation. Your word makes clear the respective role of each within our society. Forgive us for having ignored the absolute truth of their functions and have dared to legislate laws contrary to your design. Just as our nation's founding fathers leaned not on their own understanding, but looked to wisdom from above, may your same divine providence prevail in this chamber, O Lord. They understood that government is not the source of our inalienable rights, but come from the Creator, meaning they can be neither taken nor given away. They spring from the very laws of nature and of nature's God. Grant to this legislature a clear and united voice in this decisive hour, so that with every trial withstood and every danger overcome, for the sake of our children, grandchildren, and all who come after us, this great land will remain one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For we ask this of our fathers, God, to thee, who shed his grace on America and is the author of our liberty and the sole source of our inalienable rights. Amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend Beale, for that inspiring look into history and its connections to our world today. A few closing announcements, and then we'll do our door prize drawing. We will have time for 1-minute announcements at the end of my list. Our next meeting is June 11th. Our featured speaker will be Rick Aguilar. He's the chair of the Hispanic Republican Assembly of Minnesota. He'll be speaking about the Latino vote in 2024, including some analysis of the impacts of the current administration's open borders policy. We'll also hear from 4 endorsed candidates, 2 for U.S. House for Congress, and 2 candidates for the Minnesota House. A quick report on board actions. Since our last meeting, all 8 of the congressional districts held their conventions and endorsed candidates. Republican board members attended 4 of those meetings with an information table and outreach to the attendees. MNGOP officials took our materials to 2 of the district meetings, and for the other 2, we asked that a letter be read at those meetings. This week for State Central and State Convention, we will have an information table at the back of the room. If any of you are delegates, alternates to those conventions, or going as a visitor, please stop by the table, say hi to Chuck. Others of us who will be there filling in at times. We hope these outreach efforts will encourage more folks to attend via live stream or come here in person. I saw a number of new signups today. Very happy to see new folks joining us. A word about election integrity. That we need judges, equal numbers, to be at the polls, to be in the early voting locations, to be at the absentee ballot counting areas. This year, over 7,500 people signed up with our MNGOP state party to be election judges. People on that list who are accepted, they were all accepted this year, get first priority for assignment. If you missed the deadline for signing up through MNGOP, you can still go to your county or city registrar office and volunteer to be an election judge. Those of you who signed up through MNGOP, your next step is to similarly go to the place where you want to serve, get employed, because these are paid positions by the election areas, and get trained. You should, if you were through the MNGOP office, you should have first choice of positions and training. If you get told, oh, all our slots are filled, please get back to MNGOP. You should be, there are plenty of slots for Republicans. You should be able to be there. You don't have to serve in your own residence area, too. If you're willing, especially to travel into Minneapolis or St. Paul, they always need more Republicans there. Okay, are there any guests or first-time visitors who would like to tell us their name and town? Raise a hand. Guest, first-time visitor? All right.
Pam Bertram, Montrose, Minnesota. Pam Bertram, Montrose, Minnesota.
Thank you, Pam. We have someone back here.
I'm Wendy Russo from Eden Prairie, and I'm running for the House of Representatives for 49B.
Yep. Oh, we got a microphone coming. Sorry.
Tony Stocker from Bloomington.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone else? Name and town? Up here? 2. Hold on a second, Cheryl. We'll get a microphone to you.
Cheryl Rogers, Credit River.
Welcome. And behind here in the blue jacket?
Arnold Emige from Chanhassen.
Thank you, Harlan. Anyone else? All right. Thank you. Now we have time for just a reminder, all of today's announcements, I've got materials up here. If you remember hearing something, you want more information, it's up on the desk. And are there 30-second announcements? People who have a quick announcement they want to make? We've got one here. quick announcements first.
You want me to go first?
Yes, please.
Okay. My name is Julene. I'm on a committee. This is for Bloomington. We have a petition to get repeal ranked choice voting on the ballot again in November. So if you're a resident of Bloomington and haven't signed it, I ask you to meet me at the back to sign it. And you're not off the hook if you're not a resident of Bloomington. We've talked about everybody has a role to play. We need donations to further the marketing campaign when we get to that point. So if you have the resources and are willing, you can Google Residents for a Better Bloomington, and on our webpage there's a donate button.
Thank you.
And I have cards here if you want to pick one up.
Any other announcements? All right, we will now do our door prize drawing. Sorry, one more announcement.
Is it on? Oh,
yep.
There we go. There are 2 pieces of blueberry crumb cake in the back if someone is starving. Compliments of AMAC, and 1 magazine left about the rigging of elections for those of you interested in election integrity. Thank you.
And I'm going to start our door prize drawing. Our box lunches will be available there in the back corner momentarily. So we'll have the new person draw one of the names. Okay, if you have a white ticket that ends in 2639. 2639, are you still here? Yay! Come on up. And we'll have Jan draw the next one. Whoops. You got to get that one back in there. Okay, if you have a white ticket ending in 2670. All right. Thank you all. We'll see you June 11th. Stop for a box lunch. Hang around for conversation.
Republican Seniors of Minnesota. For more information, please visit republicanseniorsmn.com. While visiting our website, you can click on the video tab to watch videos of past meetings. Also, look for other tabs that bring you to our live player and other special video programs. Or on YouTube, search for Republican Seniors of Minnesota.